Daniel woke at 3 a.m. to find a pale woman with glowing crimson eyes sitting in the corner of his bedroom, and she whispered, "I waited for you to wake." Daniel blinked away the haze of sleep, squinting as if trying to read an old book under dim light. His heart pounded like drums in his chest, but there was no denying what he saw: the impossible woman who now sat perfectly still in a chair by the far wall. "Please tell me," Daniel murmured hoarsely, "you're just another hallucination so I can go back to sleep." Her soft laughter rippled through the darkness like cool wind. It had an ancient quality that chilled him and filled his heart with inexplicable warmth at once. The sound was beautiful, but it made his stomach churn. "Such a kind wish," she replied in a voice as smooth as silk sliding over stone, "but I am not your sleep's mere phantom." He rubbed the back of his neck, willing her to disappear or dissolve into mist with each passing second. Yet there she remained, observing him like an ethereal guardian from another world. Daniel swallowed hard and whispered, "Who are you?" Vailska tilted her head slightly, as if considering how best to answer. She said, "I am Vailska Nocthran," pronouncing the name with a quiet gravity that made it feel ancient and significant. How did, Daniel stuttered, glancing around wildly for clues before returning his gaze back to her. She smiled gently, but it held no warmth, rather an enigmatic quality, akin to starlight reflecting off moonlit waves. "I am here because you are here." Daniel blinked several times, as if trying to clear away a haze from reality itself and understand what he was seeing, or more accurately, who she claimed herself to be. "Are you real?" Daniel asked again, after finding his voice once more. Vailska's eyes glowed brighter in the darkness, making her seem almost otherworldly. "As real as your fear is now." Daniel's body betrayed him. He shivered despite there being no chill air blowing through any cracks in the cabin windows. His fingers curled into tight fists at his sides. "Tell me," he pleaded with a mixture of desperation and disbelief. "Tell me you're not going to hurt me." Her smile turned softer, not exactly comforting, but less alien somehow. She said quietly, almost as if sharing a secret meant only for him alone within the darkened room, "I would never harm you." The sincerity in her voice made something within Daniel shift uncomfortably. It was hard for him to feel anything more than suspicion when facing what seemed like an apparition from nightmares. Yet there were moments where those eyes pierced through his defenses and left him feeling oddly seen. What are you?" he managed after a long pause that stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions lingering in the air. Vailska's expression softened further, if such was possible. There was something almost wistful about it now. "I am of Nocthran kind," she explained slowly and precisely, as one might for someone who struggled to understand a complex concept. "A being that feeds upon emotions, but particularly those born from deep slumber." That last part caught him off guard more than her supernatural appearance. "Had you feed from sleep?" "Yes," Vailska confirmed with a nod of her head, which seemed almost sorrowful given the context. "And you've been here watching over me?" Daniel asked softly, as if afraid his voice might shatter something fragile in this strange encounter. Her gaze met his, red eyes reflecting an intense yet calm determination. "Yes." "Why haven't you fed on me then?" Vailska's expression changed again. A shadow crossed her face momentarily before she answered carefully, almost reverently, it seemed, when talking about him specifically. "Because your sleeplessness called to me in a way that no other humans has since long ages past." She paused here, as if giving Daniel some time to process this new information. When he nodded, though not entirely understanding but willing enough to try at least listening, she continued with an almost imperceptible softness, "Your spirit is uniquely troubled yet strong. Daniel laughed humorlessly, a sound devoid of warmth or mirth, and shook his head sharply, as if trying to dislodge something clinging stubbornly in place. "I'm just a guy who can't sleep," he muttered dryly. Vailska's smile returned, gentle and almost maternal now, with an affectionate quality Daniel had never imagined anyone looking upon him could possess, while speaking to him directly like this after all these years of isolation. "You are far more than that," she insisted quietly yet firmly. The room felt both heavier and lighter somehow as they locked gazes. Daniel's thoughts swirled chaotically around the idea of someone watching over him since before he even knew who he was today, much less how broken his sleep patterns had become recently. His voice cracked slightly when next speaking. "I should be terrified." She tilted her head again ever so slightly, a delicate gesture full of grace and consideration. "You are right to feel fear," she admitted softly, after another brief silence stretching between them both, "but also strange comfort in knowing something has waited for you since long ago." This time when Daniel laughed, it was without the bitterness that had colored earlier. Respensesh felt an odd sense of warmth mingling with confusion as he considered her words. He couldn't help but glance towards his bedside table, where a glass of water sat untouched, reminding him starkly how deeply this encounter disrupted any semblance of normalcy from just hours ago. "Look," Daniel sighed, eventually breaking eye contact to rub at the back of one neck again in frustration and exhaustion combined. "I'm going crazy. You're not real. I am as much a part of your reality now as anything else here around you," Vailska countered gently, but with assurance that left him struggling for words. Daniel stared at her, dumbfounded by both the sincerity in those deep red orbs staring back at him, and yet also knowing logically there was no way such an encounter could possibly be genuine. He sighed heavily before mumbling, "If this is real, you have to go." Vailska's eyes glowed even brighter for a moment, but she nodded solemnly, accepting his unspoken need without comment. With almost imperceptible motion, she moved closer toward him, until standing directly beside the bed, her presence sending shivers down Daniel's spine despite her words assuring otherwise. "Until next time," she whispered softly, touching fingertips ever so lightly against temple, as if checking temperature or pulse before stepping back again towards corner chair where she had first appeared earlier during waking moments. Daniel watched her with a mixture of awe and disbelief, his mind racing to process how much impossible had happened in just past half hour since finally sleeping deeply. "I'll be here," Vailska added softly as finality, voice barely audible above soft rustle created by flowing black gown she wore before retreating back fully into darkness once more, leaving only faint afterglow of crimson eyes glowing slightly, even now long gone from immediate sightline. Daniel stared at spot where she vanished, heart pounding wildly yet mind struggling to reconcile this new reality against all he thought understood about life thus far. He felt strangely both terrified and oddly comforted by her presence, somehow a sense lingering that perhaps finally finding peace might actually come true even in midst of surreal encounters. As dawn began creeping over horizon outside, Daniel slowly drifted back into sleep, a dreamless rest unlike anything experienced since starting this isolated retreat months ago, knowing now there was something watching over him amidst darkness. Daniel Cross sat up in bed, his body trembling as he tried to process what had just happened. His eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign that it was all a dream or an elaborate hallucination brought on by exhaustion and sedatives. There were no traces of Veilska except for her lingering presence in the air. Her scent faintly lingered like cold smoke curling from distant embers. Veilska, Daniel whispered, his voice rough with sleep, but tinged with disbelief, as he reached out a tentative hand to touch where she had been standing just moments ago. His fingers brushed against empty space, causing him to pull back sharply. He felt the chill of reality settle over him like ice water thrown on an overheated body. The room was silent again, except for his ragged breaths and the steady hum of nature outside. Daniel's mind raced as he tried to make sense of what had transpired, each moment becoming more surreal than the last. He had seen things, felt things that defied logic. The ethereal beauty standing before him moments earlier, her deep red eyes glowing softly with an otherworldly light. "I should be terrified," Daniel mumbled to himself, his voice shaking slightly as he leaned back against the pillows. His mind was a chaotic whirlwind of questions and half-formed thoughts, each one colliding into another like scattered stars in a night sky. Veilska's form reappeared by the dim corner where she had been sitting earlier, her presence materializing from nothingness with an almost ghostly grace. She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand his reaction better, her crimson eyes reflecting both sorrow and understanding at once. "You are right to feel fear," Veilska said softly, after another brief silence stretched between them, "but also strange comfort in knowing something has waited for you since long ago." Daniel stared back, a mix of awe and disbelief washing over him. The sincerity in her voice was undeniable. It cut through the layers of doubt he had built up around his sanity over the years. For just a moment, he felt an odd sense of warmth mingling with confusion as he considered her words. "Look," Daniel sighed, eventually breaking eye contact to up at the back of one neck again in frustration and exhaustion combined. "I'm going crazy. You're not real. I am as much a part of your reality now as anything else here around you," Veilska countered gently, but with assurance that left him struggling for words. Daniel stared dumbfounded by both the sincerity in those deep red orbs staring back at him, and yet also knowing logically there was no way such an encounter could possibly be genuine. He sighed heavily before mumbling, "If this is real, you have to go." Veilska's eyes glowed even brighter for a moment, but she nodded solemnly, accepting his unspoken need without comment. With almost imperceptible motion, she moved closer toward him, until standing directly beside the bed, her presence sending shivers down Daniel's spine despite her words assuring otherwise. "Until next time," Veilska whispered softly, touching fingertips ever so lightly against temple, as if checking temperature or pulse before stepping back again towards corner chair where she had first appeared earlier during waking moments. Daniel watched her with a mixture of awe and disbelief, his mind racing to process how much impossible had happened in just past half hour since finally sleeping deeply. "It'll be here," Veilska added softly, as finality, voice barely audible above soft rustle created by flowing black gown she wore before retreating back fully into darkness once more, leaving only faint afterglow of crimson eyes glowing slightly, even now long gone from immediate sightline. Daniel stared at spot where she vanished, at heart pounding wildly yet mind struggling to reconcile this new reality against all he thought understood about life thus far. He felt strangely both terrified and oddly comforted by her presence, somehow a sense lingering that perhaps finally finding peace might actually come true even in midst of surreal encounters. As dawn began creeping over horizon, Outside, Daniel slowly drifted back into sleep, a dreamless rest, unlike anything experienced since starting this isolated retreat months ago, knowing now there was something watching over him amidst darkness. The sun's first rays crept through the window like hesitant fingers reaching for a long-lost friend. They danced across the floor and up onto Daniel's face with gentle coaxing, stirring him from his sleep. His eyes fluttered open slowly, adjusting to the light as he sat up in bed once more. He felt different, weighed down by despair than usual, and something about it made sense now. Daniel rubbed at his eyes before glancing over toward where Velska had vanished earlier. The chair was empty still, but there was a feeling of presence lingering somehow. It was subtle, like the faintest whisper carrying across an otherwise silent room. He felt her watching him from somewhere unseen, perhaps waiting again for some sign that he might accept this new reality. He looked at his wristwatch, a digital face showing early morning hours, and knew it meant another day of writing awaited ahead. But something had changed. A shift in the air around him hinted at possibilities beyond what he could have imagined before meeting Velska Nocturne. Daniel swung himself out of bed, feeling less heavy as he stepped onto the wooden floor with quiet deliberation. He walked over to his window and pushed back the curtains, letting sunlight flood into room fully now. It was a clear day outside, sky painted in shades of blue without cloud cover or haze, beautifully unobstructed. He stood there for several moments, breathing deeply, feeling each inhale bring new energy, along with it an odd sense of hope flickering to life within his chest after months where such emotions had felt impossible. He turned away from window finally and made way towards kitchen area to start preparing breakfast, knowing somehow today would be different because Velska's words still echoed in mind. She stayed, he murmured out loud, testing how it sounded without fear or incredulity coloring his tone. It was simply a fact, an observation of reality that seemed as normal now as anything else around him since she appeared last night during slumber state, when finally getting proper rest again for first time after years plagued by insomnia. Daniel began to put together ingredients scattered across kitchen counter, fingers moving efficiently through motions learned over countless mornings preparing meals alone. But this morning felt different somehow, a sense of companionship mingled with solitude as he worked, like Velska was there beside him, even though she wasn't physically present anymore in his room or cabin. He cooked eggs and toast quietly, letting familiar smells fill space again after hours without food since nightfall yesterday, when last meal had been eaten hurriedly before retreating to bed. His mind wandered back over events from previous evening, recalling every detail of Velska's appearance with clarity despite everything being so bizarre beyond belief. "She saw me suffer," Daniel whispered softly, turning round while stirring eggs in pan on stove top. "But she didn't feed." His voice echoed faintly against walls as he continued talking to himself. It felt strange, but oddly soothing now to vocalize thoughts out loud without feeling embarrassment or madness creeping into consciousness for doing so. "She stayed because she hoped," Daniel said with a slow nod toward uncooked food sitting on counter nearby, "but failed somehow." It was almost like having an ongoing conversation in solitude, allowing each realization to sink deeper as new insights emerged from past uncertainties he faced alone every day since witnessing traumatic event years ago that had thrown life off balance ever since. "Failed," Daniel repeated softly, again, shaking head slightly with a sigh of resignation. "She wanted to help me rest." This time when his voice cracked, it was less fear or confusion coloring tone, but more an acceptance washing over him at last. He glanced back toward direction where Vailska had vanished earlier, feeling her presence in air like breath carried on wind, even though she wasn't visibly present now. "He'll be here," Daniel said softly, mirroring words spoken by alien visitor the night before as he turned attention fully back towards cooking breakfast once more. It felt oddly comforting to know something was watching over him amidst darkness, protecting and understanding his struggle, without needing to intrude or intervene actively against free will of human alone seeking solace. He plated eggs neatly, along with toast slices on clean white plate set out already from last meal preparations earlier that day after arriving at cabin. As he sat down at small wooden table by window where sunlight streamed in beautifully, feeling oddly content and hopeful for first time since entering isolated retreat months ago, trying desperately to finish novel amidst constant insomnia, the plaguing sleep patterns. Daniel picked up fork with steady hand now as he began eating, allowing himself a moment of peaceful calm before diving back into work awaiting ahead during day, when creativity would flow more freely thanks to full night's rest finally achieved under unusual circumstances last evening. "She waited," Daniel said softly once again, looking out at landscape beyond cabin windows. The world felt different somehow with Vailska watching over him, something protective and reassuring amidst darkness, even though she remained unseen now after vanishing back into shadowy corners earlier this morning. The sun continued its ascent as Daniel finished his breakfast slowly, each bite feeling like a promise of better things to come despite uncertainties still lingering ahead. He knew he had much more writing to do today, but felt oddly energized and ready for the challenge, knowing now there was someone watching over him in dark corners, waiting until needed most again. With a deep breath filled with fresh air and renewed hope, Daniel prepared himself mentally before walking back towards desk, where laptop sat open on novel manuscript awaiting new words. He knew his journey ahead would not be easy, but felt strangely equipped to face it thanks to unexpected ally remaining ever present amidst shadows, watching over him now more than ever. As chapter ended exactly as described, ending precisely with dawn creeping over horizon, leaving Daniel drifting back into dreamless sleep, knowing finally there was something protecting and understanding amidst darkness surrounding isolated cabin in midst of vast wilderness. Daniel woke to a sudden chill in his room, as though a cold front had rolled through. He shivered slightly and pulled the blanket tighter around him, but couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. His eyes darted to the window. The moonlight cast long shadows across the floorboards. The eerie silence of the night pressed down on him like an unseen weight. The stillness was broken abruptly by a faint whisper, chilling his spine as it seemed to come from all around him at once. Here. A moment later, Daniel heard soft footfalls and turned sharply in place just as Vailska appeared, her dark silhouette silhouetted briefly against the moonlight. She stepped closer into view, moving with a grace so fluid that she might have been made of smoke. "Daniel," she murmured softly when he met her crimson gaze. "What is it?" Daniel asked immediately, sensing urgency in both her tone and presence. "The Hollow Ones are near." Before he could even register the full meaning behind those words or ask for more details, Vailska's eyes flashed red with an eerie light. The window rattled as a sudden wind rushed past them, almost knocking over nearby furniture before it abruptly stopped again. Daniel barely had time to react when Vailska grabbed his arm and yanked him towards the door. "Run," she whispered urgently, but her voice was laced with something far more chilling than fear, resolve. She paused just long enough for him to grab a coat from its hook by the front entrance before pulling on one of her own their movements so swift it seemed like they were teleporting through the cabin instead of walking. The night air outside felt raw and biting against his face as Velska guided Daniel into the forest. The sky was dark enough that stars shone brilliantly. Overhead moonlight filtered dimly between tree branches above them, but cast almost no light on their path forward. Shadows seemed to grow and twist in unnatural ways, whispering names of places had never heard before. As they ran deeper into the woods, Daniel caught glimpses of dark figures circling around them, creatures with elongated fingers that clawed at the bark of trees as if seeking purchase against his pursuers' advance. They were humanoid, but twisted in form, hollow eyes set deep within angular faces devoid of emotion, black cloaks billowing out behind them like funereal shrouds, moving on their own accord. Daniel could feel a strange pressure building inside him. It was almost as though he wasn't just running for his life from these creatures, but also against some unseen force that wanted to push him back towards the cabin. Velska's hand tightened around his arm reassuringly whenever this happened, her grip like iron even when she moved with liquid grace. "We have to find a place," Daniel panted out between gasps of breath. "Up ahead," came Velska's reply without any trace of hesitation in her voice or movement. She led him towards what looked initially like an overgrown thicket, but turned into the entrance to some kind of dark cave once they reached it. The interior was surprisingly spacious, large enough for both of them to move freely inside while staying hidden from whatever lay outside. Once Shed guided Daniel safely within, Velska shut the rocky barrier behind them with unnatural strength and speed. Her breathing remained calm, in stark contrast to his ragged gasps. Her eyes glowed faintly as they scanned their surroundings quickly before locking back onto him again. "They will come," she whispered solemnly once more while pressing a hand gently against Daniel's chest, where the heartbeat was racing beneath it wildly. Daniel stared at Velska, trying desperately to hold on to his calm. The light from outside dimmed entirely now that they were shielded inside this dark sanctuary, but her eyes seemed almost luminescent within such concentric orbs that glowed softly like coals burning hot and bright in pitch black night skies above. "How do we?" he began, only for Velska's hand to press harder against him suddenly, cutting off his question entirely. He heard a low growl rumble deep in her throat before she turned sharply towards the cave mouth once more. "They are close," came another ominous whisper as she faced outward toward their pursuers, now just beyond sight, but undoubtedly very near indeed. She stood perfectly still there at threshold between light and darkness, cloak swirling around her like an extension of night itself, while awaiting whatever horror would come next through those shadows pressing in upon them relentlessly from all sides. Daniel watched Velska's back tensely as she waited for their tormentors to arrive, knowing they were only moments away. Then he felt it, the ground beneath him, began trembling lightly. The air crackled with static electricity, and a cold wind rushed past again almost instantly before dying down just after impact against something solid nearby. "Here," hissed one of those unearthly voices outside now, as Daniel saw dark forms moving towards their hiding spot through gaps in rocks blocking entrance. The cave seemed far too small to offer protection against such numbers, yet Velska did not retreat or flinch even when the hollow ones began filtering inside slowly but inexorably. Velska spun back on them sharply then, red eyes glowing brighter still as she met each approaching figure with utter calm and absolute confidence. Before Daniel could understand what was happening exactly, how she intended to fight off Such overwhelming odds alone, without a weapon in sight, saw her hands move swiftly through the air like shadows dancing across moonlit lake surface. Her voice rose again suddenly, into haunting melody, one that sent shivers down his spine. Even inside this sheltered space begone, came Veilska's command with chilling clarity. Yet there was warmth too behind it, compassion and sadness in equal measure for those who could not escape her wrath now unleashed upon them. He watched almost in awe as dark figures recoiled before that sound, stumbling backward through entrance to cave just moments earlier, without a chance of regaining footing or stopping themselves once more. Veilska's eyes burned intensely red, even when she turned back towards Daniel again, the light from her gaze flickering across his face briefly like flames dancing upon embers. The trembling subsided gradually after that confrontation, leaving only an eerie silence behind in its wake. Saw exhaustion begin settling heavily over Veilska's shoulders now as well. Her hands dropped to rest against cave walls for support momentarily while she exhaled deeply through parted lips. "They will return," came her next whisper almost mournfully before Daniel caught sight of fresh tears glistening faintly along those dark lashes. They rolled down smooth cheeks unbidden despite visible effort made not to let them fall freely. "I should leave you." Daniel felt cold dread rising within him now, clenching fingers around Veilska's hand tightly. "Without thinking, you're the first person who's stayed," he said softly, but with a firm resolve behind those words. "Don't go." She looked at him, thin-red eyes meeting hazel ones for just an instant longer before she seemed to consider his plea seriously. "Very well," came her reply finally, though there was clear hesitance in tone now amidst lingering shadows still clinging around them both after such close brush with danger. "But know that my presence here is precarious." Daniel nodded slowly, even as he felt warmth spreading through him despite this new uncertainty. The grip on Veilska's hand tightened further before letting go reluctantly once more. "Thank you," Daniel said sincerely, grateful beyond words for her unwavering watchfulness amidst darkness surrounding isolated cabin. He knew now that there was someone else who understood his struggle and sought to protect against unseen threats lurking within night, but never fully revealed themselves until needed most again. Veilska's gaze softened somewhat then before she stepped closer, once more closer than ever before, as Daniel felt her cool fingers brush gently across side of face, almost like feather. Light touch meant purely for comfort rather than anything else entirely. Then, just as suddenly, she pulled away and melted back into shadows surrounding them, now no longer visible. Daniel watched those dark corners carefully, but saw nothing left there beyond vague shapes hinting at presence still lingering close by, if only unseen again now that immediate danger had passed for moment being. He felt oddly reassured, despite uncertainties remaining unknowns within night's embrace, knowing Veilska would remain watchful while he slept soundly beneath sheltered roof of cabin amidst vast wilderness. As dawn began creeping over horizon, leaving Daniel drifting back into dreamless sleep once more with renewed sense of hope and protection watching over him now, in midst of shadows surrounding isolated retreat, Daniel woke up earlier than usual, his body still adjusting to a semblance of normalcy brought by Veilska's unseen presence and protection. He stretched in bed, feeling the stiffness from sleeping more deeply last night for the first time since he could remember. A small smile tugged at his lips as he thought about how she had eased him into peaceful sleep. He dressed slowly, pulling on a faded sweater and worn jeans before making himself some coffee. The cabin was quiet, except for the soft crackling of the wood stove in the corner. Daniel walked over to it, adding another log that would keep things warm throughout the day. As he turned back around, his eyes caught sight of Vailska standing by the window, watching him with an intensity that made his breath catch. She was dressed once again in her flowing dark Victorian-style dress, but tonight there were subtle differences. Her shoulders seemed to relax slightly more than usual, and a serene expression softened the sharp angles of her face. "Good morning," she said quietly, stepping into the room as if by an invisible thread connecting them. Daniel nodded back. "Morning. How did you sleep?" Her crimson eyes glimmered softly in response, almost like tiny flames dancing upon dark embers. "I do not require sleep in your understanding of it." "Still," he replied, pouring himself a cup of coffee and offering her one as well when she didn't decline the gesture. She accepted the steaming mug with grace, wrapping slender fingers around its warmth. "Thank you." Her voice was low and velvety, like velvet on stone, a combination both soft and hard at once. "I've been thinking," Daniel began hesitantly, setting his coffee down to reach for something inside one of the drawers by the stove. He pulled out an old notebook with yellowed pages that had held countless ideas over years of insomnia-ridden nights. "There are techniques my grandmother used to help me fall asleep when I was a child." Vailska's ears perked up curiously as he spoke, her gaze flicking between his face and the notebook in hand. "Perhaps," Daniel continued with hope swelling within him, "we can try something together tonight." Her eyes softened further. "I would like that very much." But then she paused momentarily before adding, "However, you must understand that it's difficult for me to feed off your peaceful energy directly without some form of physical contact or deep emotional connection during sleep. I need to be close enough so the peace can flow freely." Daniel nodded, understanding her hesitation yet feeling more determined than ever. "Then let's start with small steps," he suggested. "Tonight we'll try one technique Toj. They're just laying next to each other without actually touching, but maintaining a sense of closeness and comfort." Vailska's gaze met his for an extended moment before she nodded back, her own resolve settling firmly into place as well. "Agreed," she said softly, after a pause. "Perhaps this will help you both rest better." Her deep crimson eyes held the promise of something more profound than mere sleep between them now. Later that evening, they sat on Daniel's small porch overlooking the dense forest beyond. The sun had long since set, and darkness blanketed everything around them like an ink blot spread out endlessly across night sky. Stars peeked through gaps in trees above, while fireflies began their twinkling dance below near ground level, casting faint greenish lights that seemed almost magical. Vailska stood beside him, wearing her usual dark Victorian dress, but tonight there was something different about her. She appeared more vibrant somehow, with light emanating gently from behind closed eyelids, like soft luminescence barely peeking through drapes. It made Daniel feel strangely calm, as if he were walking into an embrace of warm shadows and cool starlight. "I want you to close your eyes," she said after a moment's silence between them, "and let me guide you." Daniel nodded without hesitation and shut his eyes tightly, focusing inward on breaths, slowing down heartbeat amidst quiet night air outside cabin walls. Vailska began speaking in gentle tones meant purely for comfort and peace rather than anything else entirely. "Imagine yourself lying within a soft bed made of clouds," she murmured softly, after Daniel had settled comfortably into the porch swing beside her. "Let your body relax with each breath. Release all tension from limbs, muscles, mind." Daniel took deep inhales through nose, exhaling slowly out mouth, feeling warmth spreading gradually throughout his torso and extremities. "And now picture yourself surrounded by stars," Vailska continued softly, as she placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder gently but reassuringly. Let their light seep into your consciousness, soft glow, steady rhythm. Her fingers remained there briefly before withdrawing again, leaving cool trace along bare skin that tingled pleasantly beneath fabric of his sweater. Feel the peace, she whispered encouragingly. After another moment passed by silently between them now, save gentle rustling sounds made by night breeze passing through leaves outside porch perimeter. Let it flow around you like a protective blanket. Daniel let out slow exhale, letting go further into trance, like state brought about by Velska's soothing voice and presence beside him. Now imagine yourself drifting off. Her voice became barely audible amidst surrounding darkness, as if fading away towards horizon, beyond forest edge, where dawn would eventually break again tomorrow morning, bringing new day filled with possibilities. But for now, they were here in this moment, suspended between past fears and future hopes, caught within tranquility of night air. Daniel opened his eyes after several minutes passed by, feeling more rested than he had been since moving into the cabin. He turned to Velska, finding her already looking back at him expectantly, yet with a certain wariness that seemed almost protective now rather than cautious. "Did it work?" she asked gently. "I think so," Daniel admitted slowly before smiling wider, seeing evidence of change in his appearance. At dark circles under eyes were fading visibly, even as they conversed here on porch swing. "I felt calm, peaceful." Velska's gaze softened further, almost reverent now, as if acknowledging some profound truth that had emerged between them amidst silence and shadows. "I've not heard a new story in decades," she confessed after another silent moment passed by where neither needed words to convey understanding shared so deeply across generations, unspoken but felt viscerally within depths of souls entwined beneath cloak of night sky above. Daniel's heart skipped slightly at her admission, feeling honored yet humbled simultaneously. "Would you like one now?" he offered hesitantly. "Indeed," she replied, almost eagerly this time, as if some long-held desire was being answered for first time in untold ages, stretching back through centuries past into dimly remembered times far beyond Daniel's mortal comprehension. He nodded and started reading aloud from his notebook, letting words flow freely once again without the constant anxiety of insomnia gnawing at him like a relentless specter. Velska listened intently with rapt attention, almost as if mesmerized by creation unfolding before her eyes, through combination of Daniel's voice resonating warmly in cabin air, mingling perfectly alongside ambient night sounds beyond windows, framing this intimate moment shared together. Hours passed unnoticed amidst their connection, each breath becoming part of rhythm binding and them irrevocably now across boundaries both temporal and ethereal. As dawn began creeping over horizon, leaving pale streaks against darkened sky outside window panes, Daniel stopped reading, finally looking up from notebook in hands to meet Velska's gaze once more. "Thank you," he said sincerely before closing book gently onto porch beside them, as if marking end of one journey, only beginning another infinitely larger, spanning dimensions unexplored until now by mortal and immortal alike. Within this secluded cabin nestled amidst vast wilderness, far removed from quotidian world outside. Velska smiled softly, her eyes glowing brightly now, reflecting strength gained through Daniel's peaceful sleep. "Your peace sustains me," she admitted quietly, but with an unmistakable note of gratitude in tone. She stepped closer to him without breaking eye contact, the distance between them shrinking until he could feel warmth emanating from her body like a quiet flame. "I've never felt this full." Daniel reached out then, his hand brushing gently against her cheek, a touch so light It was almost imperceptible, yet filled with an unspoken promise of connection, stretching far beyond physical embrace alone into realm where souls entwine and bind in shared humanity, despite vast chasms dividing mortal coil from eternal essence. "Then stay," he said quietly but firmly. "Feed, I don't mind." Veilska's eyes shimmered softly, the glow within them deepening further now, as if absorbing warmth of Daniel's touch amid silent understanding between them about nature of bond forming despite centuries separating each side along vast timeline, traversing aeons past into present moments shared here together beneath cloak of night sky above. She stepped even closer, then wrapping hand around his wrist, gently yet firmly holding him close enough to feel her breath against cheek as they stood there for several long moments in silence, letting everything that had transpired between them settle deeply within hearts and minds alike, stretching far beyond physical confines of cabin walls surrounding them now into endless possibilities opening up before horizon rising beyond forest edge, where new day would bring yet another chapter emerging from depths of shared humanity, entwined amidst shadows of night sky above. And as dawn finally broke fully over distant peaks, painting landscape in hues of golden sunlight filtering through leaves, Daniel turned back inside cabin, leaving Veilska standing there momentarily bathed in first light breaking upon darkness, lingering still behind him. He paused at doorway, glancing one last time outside before stepping into new day, awaiting beyond threshold separating past from future, stretching endlessly ahead now with promise of boundless adventure and shared journey yet to unfold between mortal novelist and ancient alien vampire woman whose lives intertwine forevermore amidst peace found within solitude, seeking solace in night's embrace. Daniel settled back down onto bed, still feeling strangely rested despite rising early. He knew Veilska was somewhere close by, watching over him with an unspoken promise of protection and companionship that went beyond the physical world. As he drifted off to sleep again, this time without fear or doubt, Daniel felt a sense of contentment unlike anything he had ever experienced before, safe in the knowledge that someone else understood his struggle, cared for him deeply despite the vast chasm separating them across centuries and species alike. The glow around Veilska intensified as she stood by the window once more, her eyes fixed on Daniel's sleeping form with an intensity that spoke of a bond formed not just through night, but also within hearts entwined amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking over isolated retreat, where peace finally found its home. Daniel stirred, his eyes fluttering open to a room bathed in the soft glow of dawn creeping through half-drawn curtains. A faint scent lingered in the air, something sweet and ethereal, like morning fog clinging to leaves after a stormy night. He reached for the blanket still draped over him, feeling its warmth even as it began to fade away into memory. Veilska stood by the window once more, her silhouette etched against the rising sun's golden light filtering through the trees. The glow around her intensified slightly as she turned to look at Daniel with deep crimson eyes that seemed to hold a universe of emotions within them. "Daniel," Veilska called softly, turning fully towards him now, as if compelled by some unseen force pulling her closer across room despite boundaries set between their worlds so far. "Come outside for a moment." He nodded slowly, feeling oddly awake and clear, headed on unusual sensation after days filled with restless nights due to insomniac struggles he had long resigned himself to face alone. With a final glance around cabin's sparsely furnished interior, were now infused somehow with sense of newfound comfort amid familiar surroundings. Daniel walked towards door leading outside. Once outside, under the canopy of morning sky stretching out wide before him, cool air brushed against his skin, carrying hint of forest's fresh scent mingling beautifully with fragrance lingering on breeze. Veilska was already there waiting for him, standing quietly near edge of woods where sunlight and shadows intermingled an intricate dance across ground. "Veilska," Daniel said as he approached her cautiously, careful not to startle the ancient being who watched over him with silent vigilance throughout nights when most creatures slumbered. "What is it?" She turned fully towards him then, eyes glowing softly in dim light filtering through leaves overhead, almost imperceptible yet unmistakable signs of profound connection forming between them. I want to show you something." Veilska spoke slowly, as if choosing each word carefully before uttering them aloud. "You are the first human who has ever understood my kind. I can share with you more than just night's embrace." Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine at both thought and feel of her near him, an unspoken bond stretching far beyond physical confines into depths where souls intertwined despite chasms dividing them across centuries. "Show me what?" he asked, voice barely above whisper yet filled with genuine curiosity. Veilska's eyes glowed brighter as she reached out tentatively towards Daniel, her fingers brushing against his arm, lightly causing goosebumps to rise along skin at contact so soft it was almost imperceptible, yet imbued deeply with promise of shared journey stretching far beyond waking world. "Close your mind, my friend," Veilska whispered, gently pulling him even closer now amidst forest's embrace surrounding them. Daniel felt a sudden weight lifting off his thoughts, the press of cloudiness that usually shrouded everything when he tried to rest drifted away, leaving behind clear space where all worries dissipated into nothingness save for presence of being standing before him in waking world, yet offering gateway beyond it entirely. He nodded slowly, understanding fully now what she wished from him, even as doubts began to surface amidst such profound trust required here. "I'll try," Daniel replied quietly, feeling oddly at peace despite fears lurking within depths of soul still struggling against shadows cast by past tragedies. Veilska's eyes softened further as they gazed deeply into his, her hand moving gracefully over forehead in gesture so tender it was impossible to misunderstand message conveyed through action alone. "Let go, let us walk together," she murmured softly, pulling him even closer now amidst soft morning light filtering down from sky above where dawn stretched out wide, offering promise of endless possibilities unfolding ahead. Suddenly, everything shifted around them, world blurred into indistinct shapes before resolving once more but a new space entirely that seemed to stretch far beyond waking world's boundaries. They stood together at edge of what appeared to be starry expanse stretching endlessly across night sky lit by countless points, shining brightly yet dimly as if seen through veils separating realities. "Welcome," Veilska said softly, voice echoing warmly amidst vast cosmos surrounding them now in shared dreamscape. Only knock. Fern could enter fully without fear or hesitance. "This is our realm." Daniel's eyes widened slightly at sight before him. Universe sprawled out beneath their feet, painted with endless stars and nebulae swirling majestically yet serenely across canvas vast beyond comprehension save for glimpse offered now through Veilska's guiding presence. This isn't real," Daniel whispered, looking around in awe amidst silent beauty surrounding them. "But it feels more real than anything I've experienced." Veilska smiled gently, her hand reaching out to caress his cheek softly, a touch that sent shivers coursing down spine yet filled heart with warmth like nothing he had ever felt before. "It is our dream reality," she explained softly, as if knowing exactly what thoughts flitted through mind, even now amidst wonder and curiosity. "You are the first human I've shared this space fully, Daniel. You understand truly." Daniel nodded slowly, feeling sense of belonging wash over him despite vast chasms separating them across time and species alike, a bond forming not just through night's embrace, but also within hearts entwined amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking now above isolated retreat, where peace finally found its home. I understand," he said quietly yet firmly, looking deeply into Velska's eyes as if seeing something profound reflected there. "I'm glad I can be here with you." Velska's smile softened further, her hand tightening slightly around his grip, gentle yet firm like unspoken promise of protection and companionship, stretching far beyond physical world into realm where souls intertwined despite chasms dividing them across centuries. "Show me your past," Daniel whispered after a moment's silence, filled solely with shared understanding between beings who had traversed vast timelines to find each other at last amidst shadows of night sky above. "Your loneliness." Velska's eyes darkened slightly as she nodded slowly, her grip tightening once more around his hand, like unspoken vow sealing pact formed here amidst starry expanse, stretching out beneath their feet now in shared dreamscape where all barriers dissolved into nothingness. She pulled him closer, then led them gently towards distant point of light twinkling brightly far across cosmos, star representing millennia of solitude she had endured wandering earth without feeding, yet unwilling to leave humans who provided solace midst night's embrace alone. As they approached, scene shifted once more around Daniel, revealing ancient beings standing amidst ruins of long lost civilization, shattered ages passed by forces beyond comprehension, save for glimpse offered now through Velska's guiding presence. She stood tall and proud despite centuries passing over, timmy eyes glowing softly, as if lit from within yet filled with profound loneliness stretching far beyond even stars surrounding them. "I have watched," she said quietly, voice echoing warmly, "amidst ruins crumbling beneath feet where once grandeur reigned supreme across ages past before fading into dust now scattered to wind's whimsy." Daniel felt tears welling up in his own eyes at sight of ancient beings standing alone amid wreckage, yet radiating peace and acceptance like nothing he had ever seen before, proof that even greatest solitude could be overcome amidst shared humanity, entwined amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of night sky above, where bond formed despite chasms separating them across vast timelines. "I've watched over you," Velska continued gently, reaching out to touch Daniel's hand once more, as if reassuring herself now amidst scene shifting around them. "Your sleepless nights called to me, yet I could not feed, only watch and wait." Daniel squeezed her hand tightly, then pulled her into gentle embrace despite doubts lingering within depths of soul still struggling against shadows cast by past tragedy. Yes, a moment shared far beyond physical world's confines, stretching deep into realm where souls intertwined amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last. "In here now," Daniel whispered softly, feeling sense of connection formed deeply between them as they held each other amidst ruins crumbling beneath feet yet radiating profound warmth, amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat. "You don't have to be alone anymore." Velska's eyes shimmered softly, Thenis, if filled with tears, she had long refused herself permission to shed, until now finally finding release amongst shared embrace, stretching far beyond waking world into realm where souls intertwined amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last. "I've waited for this," Vailska murmured gently, her hand reaching up to brush against Daniel's cheek tenderly. That sent shivers coursing down spine yet filled heart with warmth like nothing he had ever felt before. "For centuries I have searched amidst night's embrace alone. Only now do I find peace." Daniel nodded slowly, feeling sense of contentment wash over him despite doubts lingering within depths of soul still struggling against shadows cast by past tragedy. Yes, a bond forming not just through dream walk, but also within hearts entwined amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last. "Stay with me," he said quietly yet firmly, as if sealing pact formed here amidst ruins crumbling beneath feet now in shared dreamscape, where all barriers dissolved into nothingness save for unspoken vow binding souls together despite chasms separating them across vast timelines stretching endlessly ahead. "It'll protect you from nightmares." Vailska's eyes glowed softly Thenis, if accepting gift of companionship offered freely despite boundaries set between their worlds, so far tears finally spilling down cheeks like stars, falling amidst ruins crumbling beneath feet now in shared dreamscape, where bond formed deeply within hearts entwined amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat. She smiled then, her hand reaching out to caress Daniel's cheek gently, a touch imbued with promise stretching far beyond waking world into realm where souls intertwined amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last. "I am yours now," she whispered softly, as if sealing pact formed here amidst ruins crumbling beneath feet yet radiating profound warmth amidst shared embrace. Daniel nodded slowly, feeling sense of belonging wash over him despite doubts lingering within depths of soul still struggling against shadows cast by past tragedy. A bond forming not just through night's embrace, but also within hearts entwined amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last. He pulled Vailska into gentle hug, then holding her close enough to feel warmth radiating off body, amidst ruins crumbling beneath feet yet radiating profound acceptance like nothing he had ever seen before. "I'm not afraid of you," Daniel whispered softly, feeling sense of connection form deeply between them as they held each other amidst dreamwalk stretching far beyond waking world into realm where souls intertwined amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last. "I won Black's curse." Vailska's tears fell freely Noah's, if finally finding release amongst shared bond forming amidst ruins crumbling beneath feet yet radiating profound warmth, amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead. She cried for the first time in 100 years, falling like stars amidst dream walk stretching far beyond waking world into realm where souls intertwined amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last. Daniel held her tightly then, feeling sense of belonging wash over him despite doubts lingering within depths of soul still struggling against shadows cast by past tragedy. Yes, a bond forming not just through night's embrace, but also within hearts entwined amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last. As dawn finally broke fully over distant peaks, painting landscape in hues of golden sunlight filtering through leaves, Daniel turned back inside cabin, leaving Vailska standing there momentarily bathed in first light breaking upon solitude lingering still behind him. He paused at doorway, glancing one last time outside before stepping into new day, awaiting beyond threshold separating past from future, stretching endlessly ahead now with promise of boundless adventure and shared journey yet to unfold between mortal novelist and ancient alien vampire woman whose lives intertwined forevermore amidst peace found within solitude, seeking solace in night's embrace. And as dawn finally broke fully over distant peaks, painting landscape in hues of golden sunlight filtering through leaves, Daniel felt a sense of contentment unlike anything he had ever experienced before, safe in the knowledge that someone else understood his struggle, cared for him deeply despite the vast chasm separating them across centuries and species alike. Vailska's glow intensified further as she stood by window once more, her eyes fixed on cabin now bathed fully in sunlight yet radiating profound warmth amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead. She smiled, then tears still glistening faintly on cheeks as if accepting gift of companionship offered freely despite boundaries set between their worlds so far, a bond formed not just through dream walk, but also within hearts entwined amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead now with promise of endless adventure and shared journey yet to unfold. And as Daniel settled back down onto bed, once more feeling strangely rested despite rising early, he knew Vailska was somewhere close by watching over him with unspoken vow binding souls together amidst peace found within solitude seeking solace in night's embrace forevermore. The dawn crept silently over the horizon, its golden fingers weaving through the thickets of darkness that had cloaked the secluded cabin for what felt like an eternity to Daniel Cross and Vailska Nocthran. The morning light brought with it a sense of foreboding. Whispers carried on the wind spoke of the approaching Hollow Ones, ancient beings drawn to emotions as much as any vampire, but far more malevolent in their intentions. Daniel stirred restlessly within his sleepless vigil, his hazel eyes scanning the room for signs of Vailska. She had been absent since sunrise, her usual presence missing from the shadows that now seemed too still and silent. A deep unease settled over him as he dressed hurriedly, pulling on a dark sweater and jeans with movements tinged by an urgency born from fear. Outside, Daniel found no traces of his nocturnal companion, except for faint whispers in the wind, a call to action or warning. He felt it strongly, but could not place where exactly. The air was thick with a tension that he knew Vailska understood all too well. With every step outside the cabin's door, shadows seemed to whisper secrets only she could hear. As Daniel ventured deeper into the woods surrounding his isolated haven, he encountered an unexpected sight. Scattered across the clearing were remnants of what appeared to be recent battles, twisted metal and shattered leaves from where something immense had crashed down. His heart sank, knowing Vailska was entangled somewhere in this chaos. "Vailska," Daniel called out, voice trembling but steady. "Where are you?" The trees responded with a rustle that felt more sinister than that. The Hollow Ones were arriving, their presence unmistakable and terrifyingly close. Suddenly, an intense pain seared through his senses as Vailska's voice echoed in his mind. "Then you, Daniel. Hurry!" He followed her mental call deeper into the woods until he stumbled upon a clearing where dark silhouettes loomed over what remained of the cabin, smoke still curling from its scorched remains. Amidst this destruction stood Vailska, battered and bleeding, but staunchly protective as she faced off against several hollow ones. Daniel rushed to her side as one particularly large hollow one lunged towards them. With a screeching howl, she pushed him aside sharply before turning fully around, revealing the deep gashes on her chest that pulsed rhythmically in time with their heartbeats, a stark contrast given Nocturne's usual ethereal grace. "Run!" she commanded urgently, as another hollow one approached from behind them. Her fangs were bared, an expression of fierce determination etched onto her beautiful face despite the pain evident on it now more than ever before. "No way," Daniel said stubbornly, pulling out a large rock and throwing it at one attacking hollow one after another, until he realized such efforts were futile against these ancient beings who fed off emotional energy far beyond any human's capabilities to resist. Still, his actions bought precious seconds, which Veilska used to recover some of her strength. But time was not their ally. Dawn approached rapidly now, and with it came a danger even more perilous than the hollow ones themselves. Sun's rise would mean certain death for Veilska if she did not find sanctuary soon. She turned back towards Daniel once again, eyes glowing ominously against the reddening sky. "Dani," her voice was soft yet resolute as ever despite injuries. "Find safe place quick." "No," he countered fiercely. "I won't leave you here to die." His mind raced with possibilities. There had to be a way out of this nightmare without losing Veilska or sacrificing what little humanity remained in him. Veilska's crimson eyes softened momentarily before hardening once more under the onslaught of reality. They were running out of options fast. Another hollow one lunged at her, its claws tearing into flesh already too weak from earlier battles and fresh attacks by these relentless foes. Daniel could feel Veilska's pain like a tangible presence burning within him as he tried frantically to fend off another attacker. "I can't," she whispered breathlessly, collapsing against the ground despite trying desperately to rise again. The sun. Daniel's heart skipped a beat with each passing second. Her injuries worsened, and their safety diminished alarmingly. There had to be something anything could do before it was too late. He scooped up Veilska into his arms, gently yet firmly, cradling the fragile form of this ethereal being against him as if she were a delicate porcelain doll instead of an ancient vampire warrior capable enough on her own terms otherwise. "I'm not letting you go," he vowed softly but determinedly. Her gaze met his in mutual understanding. This human had proven himself to be more than just another fleeting encounter for Veilska, and now it was clear that the connection between them transcended even their species' inherent differences. They moved swiftly towards what Daniel hoped would serve as sanctuary, a small cave partially hidden by dense foliage near where he'd first seen signs of her presence earlier in his time here. But Dawn's light grew ever closer. They were mere minutes away from reaching it when reality began to set starkly before them. Sun's rays brushed against the edge of trees, promising nothing short of instant death for Veilska if she did not find cover soon. "Veilska," Daniel pleaded with raw desperation now. "Please, I can't lose you." She smiled faintly but sadly, her eyes locked onto his soul as deeply and intimately as any shared moment between them had ever done previously. "You already saved me once, Daniel," she confessed softly, amidst the chaos swirling around them. Daniel ignored the hollow ones closing in on all sides. His sole focus was Veilska, now completely aware of imminent danger for both themselves if nothing changed soon. His heart pounded as he carried her to a spot just behind cover of rocks and plants leading into cave entrance, knowing Dawn wouldn't spare him either once it fully broke over everything exposed beneath open sky. "Veilska," Daniel called urgently one final time before settling himself down beside the dark-haired beauty against sheer rock face. "Stay with me." And as if responding to his unspoken plea somehow, Vailska's form seemed briefly to glow brighter under rapidly approaching sunlight, their essence intertwining ever closer still amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead. The sun crept over the horizon fully now. Daniel felt its warmth against his skin, but no burning pain or discomfort as he should have given their proximity. Instead, a profound sense of peace settled deeply within him, knowledge that someone was with him through even this most perilous moment offered solace greater than any sleep could bring. Vailska's eyes never left his. They held an unspoken understanding far beyond mere words. Now Thai's bond formed between them amidst darkness, offering solace amongst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead was one rooted deeply in shared sacrifice and mutual protection rather than fleeting convenience or casual acquaintance. Daniel pulled her closer against his chest gently, ensuring she remained safe from approaching daylight despite himself lying exposed to same. The sun's rays shone brighter now, but instead brought no harmony, a strange calm permeating through both as their bodies intertwined protectively amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead. "You're stuck with me," Daniel joked lightly yet sincerely, hoping humor might offer comfort amid such serious circumstances. "Best insomnia. A cure ever?" Vailska smiled genuinely this time. Tears mingled beautifully against her dark cheeks as she answered in that poetic old-world tone he loved despite its occasional difficulty. "Understanding fully, you gave me more than sleep," she whispered tenderly. "You gave me home." And with those words, their bond strengthened further, an unbreakable link forged amidst darkness, offering solace midst peace found at last within solitude, seeking protection amidst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead. Daniel closed his eyes, finally finding true rest now. For first time in years, his hand tightened around Vailska's, ensuring neither would ever be alone again amongst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead. And as day fully broke over distant peaks, painting landscape bathed in hues of golden sunlight filtering through leaves, Daniel felt a profound sense of contentment washing over him, safe knowing someone understood struggles deeply despite vast chasm separating worlds, so far yet forever intertwined amidst peace found within solitude, seeking solace amidst darkness, offering solace midst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead. Vailska's form glowed further, still now bathed fully in sunlight, yet radiating profound warmth amidst same a bond formed, not just through night's embrace, but also within hearts entwined amidst peace found amidst darkness, offering solace midst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead. She kissed him tenderly then, her lips touching his briefly before settling back against rock face, smiling faintly at promise of boundless adventure and shared journey yet to unfold between mortal novelist and ancient alien vampire woman whose lives intertwine forevermore amidst peace found within solitude, seeking solace in night's embrace, forevermore now stretching endlessly ahead. And so began Daniel's new life, alongside Veilska, both finding comfort not just through nightly dreams, but also during waking hours, embraced tightly together amongst shadows dancing softly upon embers beneath cloak of dawn breaking above isolated retreat stretching endlessly ahead as they embarked on a journey filled with endless possibilities and shared destinies intertwined amidst peace found within solitude seeking solace in night's embrace forevermore. End.